Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Tyler, and today I am bringing you guys what if Johnny joined Miyagi-Do. Now this what if is going to be just a one-shot what if, but I am going to be covering everything that changes from all the way in Karate Kid 2, from all the way up to Cobra Kai Season 3. So if you guys aren't caught up on the series or anything like that, be sure to go check out the series, then come back and watch the video. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is my second Cobra Kai what if, and if you guys want more what ifs like this, let me know down below. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I am now going to transition into the video itself. Hope you guys do enjoy and have a nice rest of the day.
Hey, collecting rings like a Sonic. Bitches wanna party. Virus getting heavy, so got 'em on a diet, yeah. Flex like I'm Hogan. The oven's coming over. We respect.
We start our story off with the beginning of Karate Kid 2 kicking off. Daniel is declared the winner of the All Valley, and he and Miyagi encounter Kreese choking Johnny like in canon, and Miyagi still proceeds to save him and easily defeating Kreese. After Kreese leaves, we see Miyagi look at Johnny, who's surrounded by his friends while Johnny is on the floor. Miyagi says how Johnny wasn't a bad student but only had a bad sensei, and to make things a little bit easier for this scenario to work, we can have Daniel dropping his trophy to go and pick up Johnny to make sure he's alright. Johnny reluctantly accepts this and decides to just let Daniel help him and make sure he's alright, and he would just say to Daniel how he's fine and he'll deal with it. Miyagi almost goes on to walk away, but he stops for a second and looks behind him to look at Johnny one last time. The look in Johnny's eyes was something he's never seen from Johnny. Legitimate sadness. Miyagi would show sympathy, saying how Johnny gave it his all and was a good fighter. Now, I want to say something. You see, Miyagi is somebody who shows sympathy to people and gives second chances, shows mercy, all this other stuff. So I think in this timeline, we're just going to be applying it to someone like Johnny, who definitely we can show sympathy for, especially Mr. Miyagi. I mean, hell, even Daniel, Miyagi's student, who was fighting Johnny previously, is now helping him and making sure he's alright, because the one sensei, the one person that he believed in, Johnny that is, he just failed him. Kreese just failed him, and Johnny now at this point is upset and doesn't know what to do. Before Johnny spirals down this weird path where he would eventually encounter Daniel and them in Cobra Kai again, this time we are going to be changing this timeline and saying that Miyagi is actually going to give Johnny the second chance he needs. I think at first Johnny would deny this, but Miyagi would insist. However, Johnny just keeps on denying, and Miyagi would then say, oh well. As Miyagi and Daniel prepare to leave in the car, we would get Johnny quickly running up to Miyagi and Daniel the last minute and saying to Miyagi that he will decide to actually attend Miyagi-Do. Now, the reason why he decides to join is because Miyagi is giving him the opportunity that Johnny wants and needs, and that's to redeem himself, getting a second chance, redeeming himself from what he once was in Cobra Kai. He was someone under the manipulation of John Kreese, but now that Kreese is gone, Johnny can finally redeem himself and make something of himself. Daniel is shocked to see this and questions to Miyagi, but Miyagi would insist to Daniel that he knows what he's doing and to just trust him. We move into a little bit after the car goes off, and now Daniel and Miyagi are in the car. I think Daniel would just question to Miyagi why he would do this, letting in his own bully. I mean, what is Miyagi thinking? Miyagi would say how, in his defense, that was during when Johnny was under the teachings of Kreese, and Kreese is gone now. Johnny wants to redeem himself, and he clearly showed that to Miyagi. Miyagi would say to Daniel as well how he sees in Johnny what he once saw in Daniel, and he believes everybody deserves a second chance. Now, there is some time passing after this and the next scene, since the next scene is Daniel after the senior prom and breaking up with Allie. So I'll say before this scene, we see Johnny has already begun training with Miyagi. I'll say before his training really starts and before Daniel even gets into the senior prom, Johnny would approach Daniel apologizing for what he's done in the past, because obviously under Kreese's tutelage, he really didn't make it that easy for Daniel. And Daniel would apologize as well, with both of them agreeing they were assholes to each other at the time. And so they would shake on this, and now they decide to start from square one and decide to try and start over. Things are even easier between Daniel and Johnny when after the senior prom, Daniel reveals to Johnny and Miyagi that he and Ali broke up. And so with that, these two at this point can easily get along, and by the time we get to the nail training scene, which is literally at the start of the movie, both of them are already working together and are already kind of friends. At least now we don't have to wait 3 seasons of a show for this team up to happen. Rather, it's happening way earlier in the storyline, and we get to see it in Karate Kid 2. After this, we get Daniel and Johnny both doing the nail training, and we would transition to the next scene with Miyagi explaining about the stuff with Aunt Yuki in Okinawa, and Johnny and Daniel would both decide to get tickets to go and head to Okinawa with Mr. Miyagi, which I think Johnny would pay for Daniel's ticket instead of Daniel taking a little bit out of his college funds, which means there wouldn't be an argument between Miyagi and Daniel for Daniel getting on the plane or not. Rather, Johnny would just pay for Daniel's ticket and they both get on the plane immediately. The 3 head to Okinawa, where we would then get introduced to Chosen, who would squeeze Daniel's hand and would also try and squeeze Johnny's hand, but Johnny would squeeze back, with both of them moving back to stop the handshake. At that point, Johnny would get into the car, and we would still get Sato trying to set up Miyagi versus himself. However, that doesn't happen because Miyagi doesn't want to fight, which both Daniel and Johnny kind of don't see as to why Miyagi won't do it. He should just fight him and beat him up, and just that way they can leave him alone, but Miyagi tells them and insists that he shouldn't fight him. During their time in Okinawa, I think Miyagi and Johnny and Daniel would be shown to train a little bit extra, since Johnny isn't used to the style of Miyagi-Do just yet. But I think during their trip on Okinawa, and I think by the time we get to Miyagi grieving after his father's passing, and Daniel and Miyagi being shown to train, in this scene we would see Johnny, who had now just caught up with his old Cobra Kai self in terms of skill, but now it's in Miyagi-Do. And if anything, he's even surpassed his old self, now closing the gap between him and Daniel. Now, after this, we would see Daniel trying the drum technique while Johnny would try it when the hook is uncovered, and he would almost die, similar to how Daniel almost did. After, we would transition into the next scene where we see Daniel helping out some farmer, and when Chosen tries to talk some smack, Johnny would snap the item in half instead of Daniel, which Daniel doesn't mind in this timeline since he would have done it just like how he did canonically. And at the end of the day, they both believe this guy's an asshole, so we see Johnny and Daniel teaming up for the first time really here. Yuki and Miyagi would catch up while Johnny and Daniel see Kumiko, who would help them try and learn about the drum technique by dancing, but it would just be Daniel and Kumiko kind of dancing, and Johnny at first would try and see this but calls this dumb and takes the drum out of Daniel's pocket and goes somewhere else. Kumiko and Daniel talk until Chosen and his goons arrive and begin to attack Kumiko and Daniel. However, when Chosen would say how if Daniel disrespects his honor, he'll kill him, Johnny comes in, attacking the goon that's holding Kumiko and saving Kumiko, and then running in to then punch Chosen directly in the chest, surprising Chosen and knocking him off his feet. At that point, Chosen and his goons run away, with Kumiko this time not throwing a tomato at Chosen because Chosen already got disrespected, so she doesn't need to escalate it anymore. And Daniel and Kumiko are saved thanks to Johnny Lawrence, who would pick up Daniel asking if he's alright, and Daniel would thank Johnny and say how yeah, he is alright. The following scenes happen canonically the same, with Johnny not wanting to third wheel Kumiko and Daniel and instead would help Miyagi out. I think while Kumiko and Daniel are bonding and going sightseeing, we can maybe get a scene of Johnny thanking Miyagi for giving him a chance and Miyagi saying no worries. And Johnny and Miyagi would both go to the area where Kumiko and Daniel are at, where the 6 pieces of ice are, and Miyagi would bet on Daniel, knowing that Daniel would win, and luckily Daniel manages to chop all 6 pieces. When Chosen sees this, he feels disrespected yet again, and feels even more disrespected when Johnny rubs it in their face. After this, Chosen would destroy the line which Daniel and Johnny would want to stop, but Miyagi stops them instead, and Miyagi and Sato would have their talk, and then we would move into the dance club scene, where Johnny would be seen somewhere around the place while Daniel and Kumiko hit it off. Chosen and his squad get the jump on Kumiko and Daniel, which Johnny sees from afar and is on his way. We would see Chosen punch Daniel and him taking his money back while one of the goons are holding Kumiko. Johnny would come in, saving Kumiko from the goon by attacking him and then swiftly defeating the other goon. We would then get Chosen rushing in at Johnny, and while Chosen's distracted with Johnny, Daniel would sucker punch Chosen and take his money. At that point, Chosen turns around and tries to attack Daniel, but Johnny would then sucker punch Chosen. Chosen just got comboed unironically, and Daniel and Johnny then proceed to make it out of there along with Kumiko. We transition to the next scene where it's late at night and Johnny and Daniel would see Chosen and Sato from afar. Seeing these two, Daniel and Johnny both go out, and they would then encounter Chosen's goons from the side who canonically would hold Daniel. However, due to two people this time, obviously one person holding one person is going to be a lot harder than two people holding one person, especially when those two people know martial arts. So I think the two Chosen goons are actually going to get slept by Daniel and Johnny easily here, and Sato would then ask where Miyagi is, and they would both say how he's not here, and Sato would then say for Chosen to leave a message for Miyagi. At that point, Chosen would say with pleasure, and he would proceed to try and destroy the area. However, Johnny and Daniel would both start charging in at Chosen. Daniel would charge at Chosen with Johnny, with Daniel being the closer person to Chosen. He would try and engage in combat, however, due to Chosen being not only superior in hand-to-hand, but also having a weapon, he would make quick work of Daniel. As he's about to pin Daniel to the ground, Johnny would surprise Chosen and tackle him. Chosen is done letting Johnny and Daniel just sucker and surprise him. He's just done with this. He would kick Johnny off of himself, and Daniel would manage to recover in time, and Daniel would then engage in a fight with Chosen by himself. However, Chosen would swiftly defeat him. Johnny would get back up, and now it would eventually lead into Daniel and Johnny both getting up at relative times and them engaging in a 2v1 fight with Chosen. However, Mr. Miyagi would arrive on the scene, and he would save his two students by defeating Chosen. And I think after this point, I think the next few scenes are kind of similar to in canon, with Johnny in the background, since the main things are now Kumiko and Daniel getting together, Sato and Miyagi declaring a match, and Sato redeeming himself, and the whole typhoon situation, which maybe Johnny can help out by helping Daniel save the little girl, but that's all I can really think of for that matter. Chosen would still run away, and we would get the final battle where Chosen arrives, and we get Daniel versus Chosen. Now, around this time, Kumiko would go in to try and hit Chosen, but in this timeline, as Kumiko is running in to attack Chosen, we would see someone behind her jumping the gap between where the audience is watching the fight and where the fight is taking place at, where they needed a bridge. Yeah, a man known as Johnny Lawrence would jump the gap and would immediately rush over to save his friend, and right as Chosen is seemingly about to defeat Daniel, Johnny intercepts and punches Chosen off of his friend and picking his friend up, saying to Daniel that they need to finish this together. Daniel tries to use the crane kick, which doesn't work, while Johnny helps out with the gut strike, which does push Chosen to the edge. Anytime where Johnny loses to Chosen, Daniel makes up for it, and vice versa. They're both synchronizing, working together, helping each other in areas where the other person lacks. They're both just pushing each other to the limit and pushing Chosen to the limit. And this is also applying to the other side, because Chosen is not going down without a fight. Daniel and Johnny are both pushed to the very limit along with Chosen, and it seems like Chosen is about to go in for another attack up until Miyagi and them start spinning their drums around, where Johnny and Daniel both get the indication of what time it is. As Chosen tries to strike Johnny, Daniel would move in from his right side and would strike Chosen. As Chosen would recover and try and strike Daniel from his left side, Johnny's fist would then meet with Chosen's face. Chosen would try and strike Johnny again, but again Daniel would come in, saving Johnny from the right side, and Johnny would attack from the left. They're both doing a two-man drum technique, with Johnny striking from the left and Daniel striking from the right. At that point, Chosen would then try and throw out another attack. However, Johnny would attack Chosen from the legs, making him fall to his knees, and Daniel would then proceed to then say live or die. Daniel would honk Chosen's nose, just like how Miyagi honked Kreese's nose, and at that point, the movie would end with Johnny and Daniel both being declared the heroes. And with that, Karate Kid 2 would conclude, and we would move on to the third movie. Now, in my honest opinion, I think during the third movie, for the majority of the film at least, Johnny wouldn't change too much of the story. You see, I think Johnny wouldn't be spiraling down similar to how Danny was, because he's already went through that arc. It would be kind of weird for Johnny to go through this again. Plus, I think it's interesting to see Johnny on Miyagi's side while Daniel is spiraling down to the same level that Johnny once was back in Karate Kid 1. And so the film would progress with Daniel disagreeing with not only Miyagi but also Johnny and going through his own little thing with Mike Barnes right now. It would then be revealed to Daniel that Terry did all of this just to kind of troll Daniel, and this would scare him. And then we see John Kreese, Mike Barnes, and Terry kind of, scaring Daniel. But Miyagi and Johnny then arrive, with Mike Barnes not getting kicked by Miyagi this time, but this time getting kicked by Johnny Lawrence. After this, Miyagi and Johnny both arrive inside of the dojo, and Mike, instead of running away, would decide to try and pick a fight with Johnny. Terry and John Kreese both have something to settle with Miyagi, and so they would try and combat him. Miyagi easily takes on Terry and Kreese with relative ease, while Johnny and Mike are kind of scrapping at the moment. Daniel is just frightened with fear and full of fear. However, Johnny would snap Daniel out of it, saying how, where's the courageous and strong Daniel LaRusso that he knew? Being some sort of pansy ass isn't something that's Daniel's style. And at that point, this would wake up Daniel and be a wake-up call to him and snap Daniel out of it, and leading into Daniel now working together with his old buddy Johnny and taking down Mike Barnes, the person he previously was afraid of. As Johnny and Daniel are about to finish off Mike together, Kreese would interrupt everything and would say how they should settle it the old-fashioned style, aka tournament style. And so this would lead into Kreese and Terry both training Mike, while Miyagi would train his two pupils. Now, we do know that Daniel doesn't fight up until the final round. However, this time, since Johnny is fighting, we're going to have to make room for him. So I'll just say Mike Barnes' semi-final match is Johnny Lawrence. And so the two then approach each other on the mat. They both proceed to bow, and the first round would begin. Now, this match in particular is the first to 2 points. So whoever gets 2 points wins this match. So the match begins, and we get Johnny running at Mike with a furious kick to the chest, and that gives Johnny the first point easily, just blitzing Mike and knocking him onto the ground. Mike would be shocked to even see Johnny being able to pull this off, and before his rage gets the better of him, Terry would say for him to calm down, and Terry would then look at Kreese, who would then look at his old student, which would distract Johnny. Him just looking at Kreese would remind him of all the bad memories he's had, especially the last memory he's had, which was Kreese almost killing him. However, due to Johnny being in a daze with Kreese staring at him, Mike would strike Johnny when he's distracted and easily get the point off. And now it comes down to the next point. Now the next point will decide the winner, and Johnny begins to lose focus and is starting to panic, but Miyagi would snap Johnny out of this and would scream at him to focus. Instead of now staring at Kreese and being in a daze, Johnny breathes and proceeds to concentrate, closing his eyes. Mike, seeing this as an easy victory at this point, rushes in at Johnny, but the second he tries to hit him, Johnny opens his eyes, and he would then reveal the drum technique, blocking Mike's blow. At that point, Johnny jumps up from the ground with one leg. Mike wouldn't be expecting this given the fact that Johnny just defended his blow, and he wasn't expecting someone to immediately go for offense right after blocking an attack. He thought Johnny was going to stay on his defensive type stuff. And with this, Mike is wide open for a kick similar to what Daniel used back in the first All Valley against Johnny. This shows development in Johnny and how far he's come in comparison to his first fight with Daniel, and now he's using the same move or a similar move to what Daniel used against him on another Cobra Kai student. With this, Mike is soundly defeated, and we move on to the final round, where it would be both Miyagi-Do students battling it out for first place. I think the fight itself would be very similar to their first fight, but with Johnny making it 2-2 through actual skill and genuine tenacity, rather than just ratting and cheating. And with this, I think Kreese and Terry are just shocked to see. Now, we would have the two having fun actually fighting each other, however, they know it has to come down to the last point, and Daniel would pull out the crane kick, while Johnny would pull out the same move he did back in the first All Valley. He would rush at Daniel, and as Daniel proceeds to slam his face with the crane kick, Johnny would actually reveal that he's able to take the kick long enough for him to actually get his attack off on Daniel. He would quickly fall, however, at the last second would pick himself back up and strike Daniel in the face, and then actually knocking out. As for Daniel, he wouldn't be expecting this kind of punch from Johnny, and the fact that Johnny was able to come back up from the crane kick to get this attack off was pretty devastating, and both fighters have fallen. That's right. Both fighters, for the first time in the All Valley, have both fallen and neither are getting up. It would then come down to the judges, who decide to give the trophy to both of them. This time, both fighters, instead of fighting against each other, fight with each other, and both of them get up and hold the trophy, with Johnny holding it from the left side and Daniel holding it from the right. Both are declared the champions of the All Valley, and this is where we conclude the Karate Kid trilogy. However, that's still not the end of the what if, because that's right, we have all of Cobra Kai to cover. We transition into years later, where Johnny is shown to be living in Reseda. However, his life in this timeline was a little different. He was a party goer, but he did not just waste his entire life partying, never raising his son or talking to the mother of his son. All this stuff, that doesn't happen with Johnny in this timeline due to him having people like Miyagi and Daniel to help him out. When Johnny's mother died, Miyagi and Daniel were there when no one else was. And with these two to help him out, they would push him to actually just say suck it up and give him the courage to walk across the street and raise that child. Which means Robbie isn't going to have the same, not even close to the same life that he once had in the canon timeline. You see, Johnny wants to be a father for Robbie, like how Miyagi was for Daniel and Johnny. So this leads into Robbie going to his mom's on certain weekends and his dad's on certain weekends. Robbie and Johnny actually have a relationship with each other, and Robbie isn't going to be completely mad at Johnny and isn't going to be wasting his life. So he'll more than likely attend at school, not do drugs and stuff like that, and he wouldn't be hanging out with those two assholes that we see in season 1, 2, and 3. When Miguel is introduced, I could see Robbie being there with Johnny, helping him take out some trash or whatever, and Johnny wouldn't be nearly as rude as he was. And when Miguel is seen to be bullied at the little mini mart, I think this is where Johnny would step in and would willingly want to try and help Miguel. Alongside him would be his son, who he did teach karate a little bit, every time he would come over. And we would see a father-son beat down with the bullies, and the bullies would be defeated. But instead of Johnny being shown to choke out Kyler, it would be Robbie instead. And so Robbie wouldn't go to jail, rather he would just be taken into custody, but would be released shortly afterwards. And we would move on with Miguel asking Johnny and Robbie to maybe teach him just a little bit of what they know so that he can defend himself. Seeing how Miguel is in a spot Johnny once was in, and since this Johnny isn't a bum and is on his own feet, he would decide to help Miguel like how Miyagi was there for him. Johnny says beforehand how he should give someone a call who could actually help him train, and this person would be his old buddy Daniel, that he hasn't talked to for years. The two haven't talked in a while, so they promised to meet up at Daniel's, and where he would then give Daniel the idea of reopening Miyagi-Do. This way Daniel doesn't feel a void in his life that Miyagi was there to fill, and would then use karate to kind of fill that void and to kind of feel like Miyagi's around him. That was somewhat of Daniel's reasoning as to why he wanted Miyagi-Do open, and with Johnny bringing this up to Daniel, I think Daniel would accept. When reopening the dojo, Daniel would try and get Sam in on it, but that wouldn't happen, and Miguel and Robbie would be the first two students that Johnny and Daniel would begin to train. Now, I think things get a little interesting when we get Kyler being introduced to Daniel, because he would hear about a grown man attacking them. However, Johnny and Robbie would give context, and Daniel would understand that Kyler is bad news. I think he would decide to act on this and tell Sam and let her be aware of this, and tell Sam that she's not allowed to see Kyler anymore. I think this would be right before the Halloween episode, where Sam would have went to the party with Kyler originally, but now she kind of doesn't want to go. And I think in the end she would go to the party, but her and Kyler would never be up to anything. And rather, Sam would use this day to break up with Kyler. Now, with this, I think Kyler and his group would try and jump Miguel like in canon. Miguel would kick Kyler, and instead of getting jumped, Robbie would be there to help him. And this time, Miguel and Robbie actually get the dub off on Kyler. Next episode, Kyler would be spreading rumors about Sam earlier in this timeline, and I think this would lead into episode 5, where instead of Robbie being around the cafeteria, this leads into Miguel taking matters into his own hands and defeating Kyler and his gang like in canon. As for Sam and Miguel getting together, I think that would still happen. However, there's no tension between the two because there's no Cobra Kai, since Johnny's in Miyagi-Do, Daniel and Johnny are both fine with them going out. Aisha, I think, would still join the dojo, given the fact that Miguel would make a website for whatever dojo he would be a part of, and in this timeline, instead of it being Cobra Kai, it would be Miyagi-Do. So it's just the same thing, but applying to Miyagi-Do and not Cobra Kai. And after the school fight, I think all the students would want to join, which means people like Dimitri and Hawk, and all these other characters who would actually originally join Cobra Kai. But since in this timeline, Johnny and Daniel are on the same team, this means everyone else is as well. And also, since Robbie and Miguel are friends, obviously he's going to respect Miguel and not go near Sam. And so with this, Miguel and Sam are actually going to stay together when they first get together instead of being on and off. We would see people like Dimitri and Aisha and Bert and Hawk and Robbie and Miguel all fighting for the same team in the All Valley, and we would see even Dimitri fight in the All Valley. But I think regardless, the final matches are going to be Robbie and Hawk and then Robbie and Miguel. And so with this, when we get to Hawk versus Robbie, I think the match isn't going to have that much tension in it, and Hawk isn't going to break Robbie's arm. Now, after this match, it would be Miguel versus Robbie, and since Robbie isn't injured, they're both at their full power, and Miguel isn't enraged either, so he's not blinded by rage or anything, and both fighters would be fighting to the barest bone. However, I think due to Robbie and Miguel literally having the same training, but Robbie has had it way longer, I think Robbie would win due to him being more experienced. And with this, Robbie would win the All Valley, but there's no tension between he and Miguel. Miguel would congratulate him, and they're glad that they won the All Valley. Now, after this, we get Season 2, which, in all honesty, isn't that eventful. Kreese never returns because Johnny never has Cobra Kai, and they never win the All Valley, only Miyagi-Do does, so Kreese has no reason to come back. And since everyone is literally fighting for the same side, there's no division in the series, which means there's no tension in the series. And Tori joins the dojo or whatever dojo it is, depending on the festival. Since everyone's working together, this means Tori's foundation would be Miyagi-Do. Well, for this timeline in specific, which means even if she's all about this revenge or whatever, fighting for what's hers, I think her senseis would teach her and bring her down the right path. This means, unironically, Tori and Sam might just be friends off the bat. And as for Tori, I can see her maybe getting with Robbie, since I think that's going to happen in Season 4. Maybe they can, happen in this timeline. But that's all I can really think of for changes. Everything is a lot more peaceful. Everything is just a lot more positive and happy in this timeline. Everyone's on the same team, on the same side. And this is a timeline that drastically changes from the canon story. And honestly, it was a fun timeline to discover. But until maybe another season of Cobra Kai, this is where I see our what if ending off for right now. If you did enjoy, guys, be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you are new to the channel and want more Cobra Kai content, and hit the bell icon. That way you are constantly updated and notified when I upload. Go peep my community tab so you can get updates as well, and be sure to follow my Twitter. And I'm going to catch you guys in the next video. Peace out. Bye, everybody. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day.